too. My name is Jonathan Daboud. I am one of the people who was working on this for the past 2 years. I'm also one of the trustees representing Isla Vista.
My name is Cameron Shunk. I've also been working on this for the last 2 years, and I am a field representative for Assemblymember Doss Williams. However, I'm not here representing him.
Right, and I'm a trustee for Santa Barbara City College and not representing them either. So let's get started. Thank you for your interest in running for the Community Services District. We're having an in-person info session just like this tomorrow at 2:30 p.m. with Assemblymember Doss Williams.
You'll get to see our pretty faces, though.
It'll be at the Pardal Center in Isla Vista, and it'll have the same content, but we'll have some handouts actually and be in person. So let anyone else know that you might think would be interested in running to show up to that tomorrow.
Yep, and I know it's tough to get questions answered in a format like this and stuff, so if you do have specific questions or you want to talk about a certain issue, tomorrow would be a great time to be able to do that.
This is also being recorded, so if you miss anything and you need to go back, it'll be saved on YouTube and we'll post it on the page, and you can go back and look back at any part of this presentation later. So, getting started. Why is this important? What's at stake? So, Isla Vista self-governance. This is something that's been worked on for the past 46 years in Isla Vista. The community has, ever since 1970, we had a bank burning. The community came together with, understanding the need that we needed self-governance. We had some progress. We formed a municipal advisory council that lasted for about 12 years, and we had the IV Rec and Parks Board and District formed in 1972. But throughout the 70s and the early 80s, all the cityhood attempts, which were the focus of self-governance, were defeated at the Local Agency Formation Commission, which decides in Santa Barbara County and every county in California which governments and special districts are formed and what their boundaries are. So this is our first chance ever in 46 years, this being on the ballot to vote on for everyone in Isla Vista who's in the boundaries of the district, which is almost everything except the university-owned property, to finally vote and decide. So that is, for us, a huge historic moment because this has never been an option for Isla Vista to decide. Cameron, do you want to talk about the responsibility of the first board?
Absolutely. So the first board is going to be a unique beast. You could think about it that way, right? So first I'll back up a little bit and talk about a little bit how the district is structured. There's going to be 7 different positions of leadership. There will be 5 that are elected. So those elected positions are going to be 3 2-year terms and 2 4-year terms initially. The reason we're doing that is to stagger it so the whole board won't be up at the same time. What that means for you folks listening now is that you'll have an opportunity to either run for a 4-year term or a 2-year term, depending on which you think best suits your goals. After that, after this first initial round of directors, there's only going to be 1 2-year term and 4 4-year terms. With that said, I want to talk a little bit now about what the responsibilities of those board members are going to be. Okay. The responsibilities of the board are going to include all governance decisions for the district, including but not limited to budgeting, finance, municipal ordinances, as well as the determination of how services are going to be performed. That board is going to need to do their homework. They're going to need to be well informed about all the 8 services that the district could possibly provide. And they're also going to need to have a broad range of connections throughout the Isla Vista community so that they can accurately engage with their constituencies. We certainly can't have anyone who never goes out and doesn't know anyone in Isla Vista and expects to run for this and represent a large and diverse group of constituents. It just won't work.
Yeah, so this first board will have the spotlight on it for the first couple years. At least 2 to 4 years, everyone is going to be watching because we've been asking for self-governance for so long. It's become a hot button issue in Santa Barbara County. Lots of people are watching what we do in the next couple years. And so is the Isla Vista community itself. So we need to, as a first board, whoever it is, really steward the CSD in a positive relationship with the community and the university and the county and any other external organizations, because we're building, it's our first impression almost with everyone else. We have to build a good first impression with as a board. So next, just to mention the utility users tax, that is also on the ballot. We're going to go more in depth on that later, but that is the tax that will fund what the district can do. Without this tax, we will be powerless. We could not enact anything that we have been working towards promising and getting done. So this tax is crucial, and we believe that any credible candidate for the board should support the tax, because without it, the district will not operate. So, local government 101. Let's talk about what the status quo is right now. Cameron, you want to go into Isla Vista's current status?
Absolutely. So, as many of you know, the word's been thrown around a whole lot. Isla Vista is unincorporated. What does that mean? Anything that's a city is technically considered to be incorporated. So you look at Goleta, Santa Barbara. Lots of people are under the impression that we're a part of one of those cities. That's wrong. It's frankly false. If you live on the university, you share a zip code with the city of Santa Barbara. If you live in Isla Vista, you share a zip code with parts of Goleta. But that's a postal service trick. It has nothing to do with what the actual boundaries are of those municipalities. Isla Vista is unincorporated. That means that the county of Santa Barbara is fully responsible for everything that happens here. All the way from policing to public safety to mental health services to infrastructure. Everything under the sun is the county's responsibility. Now, I want to talk a little bit about unincorporated status versus cityhood status and what the big difference is there. I mentioned that the county is responsible for everything in Isla Vista. So conversely, in a city, the city council, the city managers, the planning departments, they're going to be the ones who are responsible for all those day-to-day activities. A great example you can think about is if you're a city, not only do you have to have a police force to arrest people, you need to have some sort of jail to put those people in after you arrest them. That adds expense, that adds complexity, it requires a large amount of administration, and that's not necessarily something that's feasible in Isla Vista right now. One, because of the money, and two, because of the unique population we have here of primarily student renters.
So in terms of a community services district and it being a special district, what is that? A city, again, just to take it back to what a city is, it is a legal entity that a community applies to have. Goleta just became a city legally 15 years ago. It still looked very similar to what it is now. It just didn't have the legal status of being a city. So, and being a city has a lot of requirements, like Cameron said, like being able to pay for a jail, that special districts are different. So a city has a high amount of responsibility, but a high amount of flexibility. But a special district has lower responsibility while also giving you the amount of service and responsibility that you want to opt into. So a special district has limitations on what it can do, but it also can be very focused in what it does. And that is the difference, is that a special district, it is a local government entity, but it's unlike a city where it has full responsibility over the area. It has only responsibilities over the areas that you give it. So you can have a CSD that is only focused towards sewage, and that's how actually many CSDs operate. And they are only focused on that. They're just a legal entity that communities can set up to collect taxes, to have representation, and to provide services. That's the simplest way you can provide. It's just an entity that you set up to benefit and improve your community.
Exactly. And I think the key limitation that I want to harp on is we can't pass laws. So a lot of people will look at the community services district and think about it in terms of changing perhaps the noise ordinance or changing zoning laws in Isla Vista. I want to make it clear that the community services district does not have the ability to do that on its own. And I make that point very carefully because I believe the community services district can be used as a piece of leverage, as a foundation to push for some of those things that we might want. If we want to modify the noise ordinance, it sounds a lot better coming from a board of directors than it does from a bunch of angry college students.
That has like a well-researched plan that can present to the county. Right now, we don't have that central coordinating body and institutional knowledge and funding and resources to put out ideas and recommendations and engage with the county on a regular basis like the city of Goleta does, or Santa Barbara. The IVCSD, though, is a special district because we thought that Isla Vista is such a unique place, it has so many unique needs, that a regular community services district that is allowed for in California law was not enough. So we went to legislation presented by Assemblymember Das Williams, Assembly Bill 3, to create a special district that was special for Isla Vista. This took a whole year of work to get the bill introduced, have the community every Tuesday night from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. talk about the bill from scratch, and then put together a proposal that passed through the California State Legislature and was signed by Governor Jerry Brown on October 7th, 2015. So the bill, what it did for us is it created some more abilities for the CSD that no other CSD has in the state of California. The three being, most specifically, are our CSD can have a parking district to deal with the unique parking issues in Isla Vista. Right now, any CSD that we would have created in any other form would not have been able to address the parking issue. So we gave our CSD the full powers of a city in terms of addressing parking, as well as tenant mediation. As we all know, housing is a big issue in Isla Vista. Landlord relations with tenants are tense. People move every year, having some less stability than other places, and knowing which landlords are hard to deal with. So having a tenant mediation program like the one offered in Santa Barbara and to UCSB students who live on campus is a huge improvement at the status quo. Right now we have a tenants union, the Isla Vista Tenants Union and Legal Resource Center. Those provide advice and resources to residents. A tenant mediation program could get a landlord and a tenant to sit down in the same room and craft a legally binding agreement that they can move forward with and work with them.
And very quickly, I want to touch on two parts of that tenant mediation program because I think it's incredibly unique. First and foremost, there's no way that it's designed, right? The law simply says the Isla Vista Community Services District may implement a tenant mediation program. In terms of the parking program, we've got, related to the 1951 Parking District Act. The point I'm making is that there's a lot more regulation and structure attached to the parking district. The tenant mediation program has a whole lot of leeway and really offers an opportunity for the future board to dig deep and develop a program that really speaks to Isla Vista's needs.
You want to talk about the tax?
Sure, let's move right into the tax. The special thing about the IVCSD is the type of tax it can levy. Almost every community services district throughout the state levies some sort of tax in order to pay for the services it provides. Almost all of those taxes are based on property value. So that could be a tax on the number of bedrooms in your home, a tax on the number of doors in your home. There's different ways to do that, but the point is they're all based on your property tax. The unfortunate thing about property tax is that there's no way to exempt someone from a property tax. So even if you have very low income, you will still have to pay property taxes. Second, it unfairly burdens people who own their own homes and live in Isla Vista, while not sharing that burden with people who simply rent their homes. For instance, I live in an apartment complex and likely wouldn't incur the same sort of costs because of an increase in my manager's property values. So we asked ourselves, what is the best way to spread that tax burden across all people in Isla Vista, or at least most people in Isla Vista? And the result we came up with was what's called a utility user tax. The utility user tax is based on the federal excise tax, which allows you to tax goods and services. And it taxes your utility bills for gasoline, electric, water, and sewage at a rate of 8% per month. Before I go any deeper, I'll share with you the dirty details of the numbers. We're looking at about between $5 and $10 per person per month. So you could think of that as about a half a Freebird's nacho you don't get to eat one time per month in return for increased parking, expanded tenant mediation services, the list goes on and on. Cadet policing program, so on and so forth. So to me, I think the tax is pivotal because it spreads that burden, like I said, right? Even renters are going to be paying their utility bills. Even renters are going to feel that increase in utility bills. However, it's going to be much more manageable. If your rent goes up $300 a month, you could probably safely say your landlord is overcharging you because you have a better estimation of what your utility usage is. Unfortunately, most people have a very difficult time determining the property value of the apartment building they live in, and thus would have no way of knowing whether their increase in rent was proportionate to the amount of tax being levied.
Cool. The last thing that makes our CSD unique is the way we set up our board. So in Isla Vista, we have a lot of students who live there who want to be involved in government, but sometimes can't commit to a full 4-year term on a local, government board. So we created on our CSD a 2-year term out of the 5 elected positions that will make it more flexible for people who want to run and be very involved for 2 years and then pass it on to someone else. And then the other 4 members can give the stability, along with 2 appointed positions that no other CSD has, one appointed by the County of Santa Barbara Board of Supervisors, and the other one appointed by the UC Santa Barbara Chancellor. So that will bring both those entities to the table so that we can properly work with them. Historically, we have not had a symbiotic or synergetic work relationship with the county and the university, and this really brings everyone to the same table to make the decisions and dialogue. So that is the basics of the Community Services District. There is more to know on the, there's more to read about this on our website, IVCSD.org. The service plan is on there if you want to dig deeper into these details. But we're going to go and talk about running and the experience of all that. So really quick, eligibility to run. You need to be 18 years old on or before November 8th, 2016, which is election day. You need to be a United States citizen by that date. You need to be registered to vote within the boundaries of the Community Services District. And you need to file papers by August 12th with county elections. That is right off Turnpike. If you exit on Turnpike, you go down towards In-N-Out and you make a right. Instead of going towards In-N-Out, you will get to the county elections building. That is where you can pull your papers, fill everything out, and turn them back in by August 12th. That is a whole other process, but the elections office is pretty helpful, and the forms have a pretty good guide on how to fill them out. But that's the eligibility. These are the basic requirements. And really quick on the boundaries of the CSD, it's, again, the box of Isla Vista, excluding El Dorado and Westgate apartments. West Wind's apartment, even though it's managed by the university, is within the boundaries of the CSD. So, campaign expectations. We're going to just talk about that. That's a slide itself. Cameron, do you want to go into this?
Sure. So I think one of the main things that I want to get across in terms of campaign expectations is that, you know, this needs to be a serious priority. If this is something you're considering doing, it shouldn't be because you want your name on a title. It shouldn't be because you think it would be fun. Don't get me wrong, I think it would be a lot of fun. And I think that that's a major motivating factor for a lot of people, is the passion they feel about local governance. But, and the big but, is that it's work. It's a lot of work. Being a part of a campaign and being a candidate especially is incredibly taxing on a person both physically and emotionally. Like Jonathan mentioned, you're going to be entirely under the spotlight pretty much the entire time. And additionally, you're going to need to also be supporting the overall CSD movement, right? So you can't simply just say, I want to run and be on the board of directors, but I'm lukewarm about the district existing in the first place. And that's going to mean a lot of late nights, a lot of early mornings, a lot of long days. At the end, however, I think Jonathan can vouch, and I think if you get a chance to speak to any elected official, they will tell you that it's absolutely worthwhile.
Right. We're going to be looking at, for candidates, up to 15 hours a week, maybe more the closer we get to the election. It is a big commitment. You'll be tabling at UCSB and in Isla Vista every day. You'll be going door to door almost every day, talking to voters. Remember, if you get elected and the CSD is not formed or the tax is not passed, then you don't really get to do what you promised the voters you would work on. So that's like what Cameron said, is we need the candidates to also be out there letting voters know about the Community Services District along with your own candidacy. So it is a lot of work. There is going to be a lot of people who have a lot of different ideas about how this should go. A lot of people who don't know what's going on yet, who you're going to have to inform.
And I will throw the unfortunate side out there. There will be people who think negatively of you because you've chosen to pursue this if you do. And there will be people who will say negative things about you and your platform stance.
Yes, that is the unspoken part about campaigns. They do get negative sometimes, and we can't control for that. So that is a part of entering the public spotlight, is being open to criticism and not taking it personally.
And also understanding that a lot of that criticism may be valid, and that it is your job to analyze that, internalize it, and use it to make good decisions.
Yeah. And we also expect the candidates that you won't just stick to reaching out to people you know, but to the entire community. Because remember, Isla Vista is a pretty diverse place. It's not just UCSB students, which is the common perception. We have 3,000 SBCC students. 3,000 families who live in Isla Vista. Those are two demographics that are often forgotten, and they make almost half the population with UCSB students. So we really expect candidates to understand that Isla Vista is a very diverse, unique community and play to all its sides, not just the side you're most familiar with. Current elected officials in Isla Vista who represent IV. Myself, I got elected in 2014. Paula de la Cruz and Jacob LaBelle, both IVRPD directors who were elected in 2014. We also have Ethan Bertrand, who was appointed to the IVRPD. So all four of us can give you perspective of what it's be like to be on a board, and you're more than welcome to contact me to get in contact with all of us. And myself, Paula, and Jacob can all give you the perspective of what it's like to run an election in Isla Vista during, we ran in the midterm election. It's not as big of a buzz, but it's still pretty similar. And there's a lot to consider when making the decision to run for office. Summer reading. We have these all packaged together in the service plan. The appendix contains all of these documents. We'll send them to you if you would like it. Just email me at jonathana157@gmail.com. It's right there. I'll post my email again on the Facebook event. But this is very important information that informed everyone throughout the entire process. A lot of this was produced during the process to create Assembly Bill 3 and the Community Services District. So this will give you perspective of the past, because a lot of the people who were involved at the beginning are not planning on running or around in Isla Vista anymore to run.
Right. And there's one thing I'll get a little blunt here. Jonathan and I know too much about this special district. We know too much about local governance, and we know a whole lot about the history of not only this movement, but the previous movements. What that means is that you can't fool either of us. We're going to know whether or not you've done your homework and you've gone through and actually critically evaluated these documents. What that also means is that I expect questions. A lot of this stuff is confusing. A lot of it will be the first time you've read some of these words or seen this information presented to you in this way. As two people who are going to be intimately involved in the November campaign, I think it's going to be crucial as a candidate, if you hope to work with the greater movement, to know your stuff. And I will say, and this isn't a threat to anyone, but I will say Jonathan and I certainly don't have time to be trying to teach the candidates about the district while we're also trying to campaign for it. It simply won't work. So in order for you to be an effective candidate, you're going to need to come more prepared than usual.
Take the time now in July to read everything and ask us questions. And to be honest, I've also received no questions from anyone who's been at a previous info session. And that is very telling on if you're asking questions, being critical of the information, or just scanning it and going into the election with surface level knowledge. If you get stumped at any point by someone, you're not just hurting yourself, you're hurting the entire election for the Community Services District. So you're going to be representatives of that, and if you're doing a bad job, it's going to impact everyone negatively. So that is the entire presentation. If you have any questions, you can contact me or Cameron at any time. We'd be happy to talk and sit down with someone and go through this, tell you some more of the history that we can't communicate over the internet. Very happy to sit down and meet with people, because we want the best board possible to run and win. Absolutely. So it's in our interest that this is successful, and we would like you to be as successful as possible. So please contact us.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you. This is going to be posted online on YouTube, so feel free to share this and get the word out that this is a big deal. It's happening. Bye.